Hi guys, it's Marty from owingsart.com, and thank you for stopping by today as we take a look at a variety of different water brushes. Water brushes, just from a very basic standpoint, are brushes that you can fill with water. You can also fill water brushes with other liquids such as ink or different types of paint, but you have to use a little care and caution in the way you use it and things like that. But let's first start off with just the basics. There's lots of different types of water brushes being made today. Pentel makes a line, Faber-Castell makes a line, Caran has different brushes, and they come in different sizes from fine, medium to large bristle type brushes. And the thing that's great about these is they're very portable. So say in the old days you're a watercolor painter, you wanted to go in the field, you have to take your water with you, a bunch of different kinds of brushes, etc. And then you have to have a container to put your water in and things like that. With these brush pens, it allows you to fill the reservoir, as I said, with water, and then you've got a brush that's ready to go. You just squeeze it usually or push down like a syringe type cap, and you're able to get water out of the end of the brush, apply it to the paint, and then add the paint to your painting surface. So the first one we'll take a look at is probably one of the most popular ones, which is the Pentel Arts Aqua Wash or Aquash water brush. The thing is, these have nylon bristles, which are very good at holding the paint, and they clean up nicely. And you could use them with different types of watercolor or paint. And it allows you really to have a precision control over how you apply the paint. Or, well, basically, you control the flow of the water. Which has an impact on how your paint looks. But right now I'm going to try to fill it with a little hydrous watercolor, concentrated watercolor, liquid watercolor. Now I've reviewed this hydrous ink on, this is Dr. P.H. Martin's. I've reviewed it on the site just not long ago, so if you want to take a look at that video, you can get yourself familiar with this. But what I did here was I was just going to try it straight into the water brush. So I filled it up with, well, about a third of the way. And then I had an awful hard time trying to squeeze the ink out of the end because I think the viscosity in the ink is a lot thicker than the water brush is used to. So here I just kind of spilled some on the paper and worked it in that way. What I found out later on was I need to cut this ink a little bit with a little bit of water. So once I added a little bit of water into the reservoir, the ink flowed a lot easier, although you can see it's a little bit more washed out. But if you're using these inks for washes and things like that, that might be ideal. The other thing you could do is just apply the ink to the paper and then spread it out with the brush itself. The problem there might be that you're going to experience like a concentration where you put the ink on the paper. Otherwise you could put it in maybe a palette or something like that. The important thing I just wanted to mention was that this is another method for applying ink. Now here you see I added a little bit more ink and a little less concentration of water until I found the right balance. And once I found the right balance where the viscosity was such that it was conducive to coming out in the bristles, I was great. So it's just a matter of finding the right balance. So that worked great. So you can take an aqua wash or a water pen, you can fill it with this water-soluble ink, and then you just add a little bit of water to it. You should be good. Now this pen is something completely different from sort of the other pens here. This is another Pentel, but it's a color brush. It comes with the ink already in it, and you just have to remove a little ring around the cap and voila, you're ready to go. So you can buy refills for these, and these really are considered like pigment ink brushes, really. I mean, and there's a bunch of different companies that manufacture these, including Kuretake, which is a Japanese manufacturer, and others. But I just wanted to try them out just to get a sense and feel for how they worked as well. Some of them you can fill with different colored inks and things like that, so that's handy. Now one thing you do have to be a little bit conscientious about or conscious of is when you fill a water brush with ink, you got to make sure the ink doesn't have a high concentration of shellac in it, or that it isn't shellac based ink, because that will ruin your bristles. It'll get sticky and it clogs the rubber pieces inside the brush so that you end up not getting any ink out of it if it dries. And so that's really probably something you want to avoid when you're using these. Now here I'm just using straight watercolor on with the brush, and you can see you can either squeeze and add water to the paper itself, then add some color into that, or you could just dip the pen straight into the watercolor on your palette and use it the way that way as well. And that's the way I most typically use it when I'm doing my painting. So it's pretty easy. You just squeeze the brush, get a little bit of water on it, and go to town. Now here's a painting which I'll revisit here in a few minutes, but this is something I did this past weekend using just this water brush. That is I bought a Daniel Smith set not too long ago, or an M. Graham, might have been an M. Graham set, and it had sort of this picture of a farmhouse. So I used that as a reference and did this kind of derivative work of that, and I thought it came out pretty good, and it was fun, you know, to do that with a water brush, because I don't have to haul, and I did it in the field. I don't have to haul around like a bottle of water, a water dish that I have to rinse my brush out in, and then, you know, other brushes. You just kind of got it all there in one neat little package in the water brush. Now one thing you'll notice about the different types of water brushes here is they fill in different methods, and so I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute or two. Plus, depending on the brush you buy, they screw on and screw off differently. So remember lefty-loosey, righty-tighty to unscrew? Well, since these are made, some of them in Japan or other places, it seems like it's the opposite. So if you want to tighten it and screw it down, instead of going to the right, you have to go to the left. So the opposite of what you've been taught or heard, or the typical American way of you know, screw rotation. So instead of lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, it's righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's the way it works. Now see, this is that pen that I filled with Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus watercolor, concentrated watercolor, and you can see it just comes out very nice. So I just wanted to demonstrate that. So that one is a medium bristle brush, which is the one I tend to use most often. I find that the fine brush is really good, and it's mostly fine, but I like to get an even finer line once in a while, so sometimes I'll carry a really fine brush with me, and I'll use that instead. But that's really the only time I've found any restriction with respect to the size of the brushes and the variety of bristle sizes that I've been able to you know, make use of with these. Now let's just spend a couple of minutes talking about the different types of brushes and how they fill up. So you've got some types of these brushes like the Caran and the Faber-Castell that are sort of syringe based. So you stick them in some water, and I'll demonstrate this in a little while, and then you pull on the syringe and it sucks the water into the reservoir, and then you've got, you know, that's how you fill it. Others, you just turn on the tap and run water right into the reservoir, which is an open, you know, ended sort of the container of the brush. And then there's still others that have sort of this rubber gasket and a little tiny hole, and in that tiny hole you can either run it underwater, which takes a long time, or you just put it upside down in a cup and again squeeze it hard and then let go, and it sucks the water into the reservoir. Now these brush pens, I wanted to say, fit pretty nicely into this watercolor tin I have. This particular one is made by Schminke, the German paint manufacturer, and so that's really compact. I can take that in the field with me, and that's it. That's all I need besides some watercolor paint or watercolor paper to go out in the field and do some painting. So yeah, just give you an idea of the overall compactness, or you know, this is a low barrier to going out. You could stick this in your pocket, purse, bag, whatever you have, and you're, boom, Bob's your uncle, right? You're in the field and you're painting away. So anyway, yeah, that's what's cool about these. They're extremely portable. So you can imagine just packing these up. You've got a sketchbook with you or some watercolor paper, and you just have this little tin with your watercolor palette in and a water brush, and away you go. and basically you can spontaneously sketch anywhere you want. So this I did in the field over the weekend, although I wasn't out where this house is actually at. I used a picture reference, but I was able to use the variety of the brush sizes. So like I used the large size brush for the tree and things like that, and basically washing in the ground cover and things like that. And then I used a medium brush for some of the background and other detail, and then went to the fine brush for the very fine detail in the shadows there. So pretty handy. So the next thing I want to talk about is cleanup. Why is cleanup important with these brushes? Because, well, they're nylon tip brushes, but you don't want the color to sit in there, and you want to keep them clean so that the next time you put them into the paint, you're not going to muddy your color or get some undesired result out of the color you want there. So, you know, I just use a little soap and water, and I'm wearing these gloves here because I actually was handling a lot of ink while I was demonstrating, and I I don't want to get a semi-permanent tattoo on my hands, so I just put on some rubber gloves. Anyway, so I wash them out. I make sure that the brush tips are clean and free of any of the paint residue in there. Use a little dish soap on them, make sure that's rinsed out thoroughly. Fill up the water brush, put the cap back on, and then store it away for next time I use it. And so I usually carry, I've got like 3 different kinds of brushes here that I, take a look at: the syringe type, the squeezable, like these Pentel Aqua brushes, and then I think the other manufacturer is the Kuretake kind of brush. So here I just want to quickly demonstrate how to fill like the syringe type brush. So you stick it in the water, you pull, and then it's full. I'm just shooting the water back out so you can see. But it's pretty simple and pretty easy with the syringe brushes. Although I really prefer the Pentel, as I mentioned, because it's just easier to fill. There's no syringe action or anything like that. It's easy to squeeze and get the water out of. You don't have to push down on the syringe or worry about squeezing the brush in some other method. So there's just a bunch of different kinds of water brushes here, but I think my favorite among these is the Pentel. It feels nice in the hand, it's easy to use, it's a low, barrier to filling it up, and it's just very nice. And you can put all different kinds of media into the brush if you want to use different types of washes and things like that. One of the things I want to try next is sort of like this liquid graphite. I don't know how that'll work, if I'll be able to put that in the pen itself, but I'm looking forward to giving that a try. So yeah, again, there's just a big variety of these, and almost every manufacturer is getting into the game now. They're trying to put these out because obviously this is kind of taken off because of the great portability, as I mentioned, and just because these brushes are really quite reliable. And you can create good works of art with them, and every bit as good as any kind of traditional brush you might use. So why not give it a try and see what you think? All right, well, thanks for stopping by today as we took a look at a variety of these different water brushes. Well, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. Share the video if you found it interesting, and don't forget to comment and leave questions. I love to get those. All right, so have a great day, everybody. So long for now. This is Marty for owingsart.com.